Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make these coiled spring earrings. Now, this is version number 1, and I have a variation, which will be number 2, which will be the next tutorial to come out. And what I would like to do is give you the snapshot of the supplies you will need. So, you will need your 20 gauge wire, 0.81 millimeters dead soft wire. I've used raw copper. You'll need 2 pieces that are 3.5 inches long, which is 8.75 centimeters. 2 pieces that are 6.5 inches long, which is 16 centimeters. Then you need 2 pieces that are of 28 gauge wire that are 4.5 feet long, which is 135 centimeters. And 28 gauge is 0.32 millimeters. Dead soft wire. Again, I've used raw copper. So you will also need for beads 10 4mm beads. I've used round, and I've demonstrated with round, but you could use bicones. You could use, rondelles, I guess, and you would just have to adjust the coil to be smaller, or bigger, depending what bead you're using. And 2 8mm beads, and I've used round again. So you would just, follow along and just adjust the size according to what you need for your beads that you've chosen. For tools, you're going to need a 7mm pencil, a pencil where the diameter is 7 millimeters. You will need your chain nose pliers, your round nose pliers, your flush cutters, and your rulers. So if this is the first time you're seeing me and a video of mine, I really encourage you to hit the subscribe button. And I also check out my subscriptions, memberships, where it's a paid membership, which helps support my channel to continue in existence and carry on with coming up with new designs. And I really recommend you checking out the previous retired video membership. And I find this difficult, so I'm flustered with my words. Sorry, asking for money, but it is what it is, and it just really helps the channel out, because the way YouTube now, it really does not support an artist and the work that they put into their videos. So that's why I ask for that support, and here we go. So let's get on with the show, and we will start making these earrings. We're going to start with making our head pins, and I want you to take one of your 20 gauge pieces of wire that is 3.5 inches long, which is 8 3/4 centimeters long, and I want you to bend it at 1 centimeter. So if you're not making the head pins, you can pass by this portion. You can choose to do your own type of head pin, but I like to show everything because I never know when I have a new person coming to see my videos for the first time. So bear with me while I teach how to do a spiral head pin. Okay, so the first thing I do is I take my chain nose pliers, and my chain nose pliers have a really tiny tip, quite important. And I make a tiny little half loop at the end. Okay, like that. And now I'm crimping it down and back because I want to make a tiny little bud with as little air space in it as possible. And it will slip around on you and bend on you. You just do the best you can do. It didn't this time, which is amazing. 90% of the time it does that little flip on me. And then you just straighten it out. Oh, there, see? It just did a little flip on at me where it went sideways. Goes a little bit wonky. Flatten it out again. Crimp it down. See, there's my little bud with a very minimal airspace in there. And then you just grab it and roll it around. And this can take practice because you're going to flatten the wire. That's a given because you have to hold it firmly. And I think the flattened wire adds to the look of your spiral. So don't stress out about that. And then you just go up into the bend. Now you could just make your spiral and bend it later. But this does two things. That's a very hard bend to make. And it's pre-measuring how big your spiral will be. And it's doing that nice bend for you. And it looks perfect. Okay, go ahead and have 2 of those made. Okay, there you go. Now, I want you to take, your 6.5 piece of 20 gauge wire, one of them. Okay, so 6.5 inches is 16 centimeters, and now that's an approximate. And it's 20 gauge, which is 0.81 millimeters. So this is what we're going to make the spiral out, or the spring kind of thing, out of the coiled spring. That's what I'm going to call these earrings, coiled spring earrings. And there's going to be 2 versions of it. This one, and then the next video that comes out will be the version number 2. And so they'll have the same title, just number 1 and number 2. So what I want you to do is take your round nose pliers at the smallest point that you could work with and make a P-loop. So right at the end, like that. It's hard for me to see with, oh, see, mine went wonky. I couldn't see. And I'm going to flatten that out to start again, just because I don't have a lot of extra wire here. I started using 7 inches. So if you want a little easier to work with, do 7 inches. And you could snip it off. But that's what you want to do. There it is. It worked out just fine. A nice P loop. Okay, P because it looks like a P. The letter P. Whoops. Bang my phone. And I'm flattening it. And I'm straightening the wire. Okay, and now you need to take your 28 gauge wire. Okay, so this is 28 gauge wire, which is 0.32 millimeters. And I'm getting mine all tangled already because I'm working on the tabletop. When I'm winding and weaving, I usually do it on my lap so I can dangle down to the floor. I usually don't do it over a tabletop. Okay, so what I want you to do is, we've got the loop on this end. We're going to work on the end that doesn't have the loop, and we will slide it down as we work. And this, I forgot to say, this is 4.5 feet long. I'm probably being very generous. You can find out how much you use by practicing with copper. When you do silver, you use less. So I can't even guesstimate how much you would use with silver, because silver tends to be more springy than copper, so it doesn't compact as well, so you use less. So it's, yeah, if you're using sterling silver, I guess you would adjust accordingly, and you know, you could keep track and write down yourself a chart so that, you know, to do coil this much, I use this much, and, you know, and eventually you'll get it down to an art if you do a lot in sterling silver. So give yourself a good tail, because that's what you're using to anchor yourself and holding it, and we will cut that off later. Do not cut it off right away, because we will use it. Okay, so I usually start my coiling with just a few before I cinch it up. And I try to be fairly consistent with how far they are apart they are when I do it. So I'm going to do 4 coils, and then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and cinch it up. And I'm doing it on both sides there. And then I do about 14 rotations. 15 rotations. And again, I try to be fairly close but consistent, because then my wrapping will look nice and even. And I've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Whoops, I went too close. 15. Okay, so that's approximately 15. And I'm going to cinch that up. I find if I go longer, I end up bending my wire because it's not enough support, and then all of a sudden this wire gets kinked up this way. And so I find it, I can just wrap neater if I only do 10 to 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. And you just keep doing that. Okay. And what you could do too is you could have the plier on this side and go with your fingers and push against that way too. That's personal preference. Sometimes it's easier to do that. Okay, and I'm sliding it down so I have more workspace. And I like to be near the end so that that wire isn't getting in the way of my doing the wraps. That's why it's not down here yet. But we'll slide it there. Don't worry, we'll get there. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. Now I'm just going to speed on by, and you go ahead and work on yours. I'll be right back. Okay, so as I'm coiling, I'm finding myself doing something, a new trick. So I'm just going to demonstrate what I found myself doing, and it made it easier for me. So I'm doing my 15 wraps, or approximately there of. And then I'm still near the end, and it's getting longer and longer, but I just find myself just putting my pliers there, holding it tight, and then just pushing the coil back up against the pliers, and then I just slide it back again. And then eventually I'm going to get to the end. So I might as well just keep on going because I'm almost done. Yeah, because I've only got like a foot of tail left here. Oh, and then I ended up bending it. Okay, there. That was minimal though. Minimal. Okay. Keep going. Push it back. Probably have too much wire here, but don't worry. If it's too much, we can cut it off, unwrap it. But I would say give yourself extra in case you do end up using bigger beads or making a bigger coil because you have a bigger pencil. Give yourself that extra room. And there, I'm going to stop there Now I'm going to take my pliers and hold the end, and I'm going to slide the rest of the coil to the P loop. Okay, and I've got extra there. Let's measure how much coiling I've done. It's 4.5 inches. I'm wondering if I need a little bit more. Better to have too much than too little. So I'm just going to do a little bit more. We'll find out. I recommend always watching a video completely through. Oops. Make sure you don't overlap your wires. Easy to fix, just unravel and go again. Okay. There, let's see where we're at. 4 3/4. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pencil. Got it pushed up to the P. And I'm holding my thumb there to support that wire, and I'm bending it around to make my coil. And I'm still supporting as I go. And if it bends on you, don't worry about it. We can fix that. We don't want it too spread apart. You want it fairly, because we can stretch this out later. It's easier to stretch it out than it is to push it in. And we want it to have, see, this is about exact. Yeah, because we want it to have 5 wraps. Okay, I'm thinking about this. Did I make it too short? Don't know. But we will find out. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trim off this tail right here. Snip it off. And the next thing we want to do is we want to try and bring this loop, we want it flat and level, but we want to try and pull it into the center. So actually, I recommend grabbing it by the loop and using tension to kind of make, you see what I'm doing here? And you see the coil ended up moving on me while I did that, and that's okay. All you do now is grab that tail and push the coiling back. Of course, it's not cooperating for me because I'm on camera. But just so I'm just teasing it back into place like this. So I'm not trying to bend anything. I'm just gently going like this and twirling. And you know what? It worked. It went right back in. I didn't push from the bottom because I was going to deform my spring. But I got it there. So I've got that, and we want it to be in the center. It is not in the center. See, it's on the side. So we're just going to work it till it is in the center. Until we're happy. And once we have beads on it, we'll be able to tell better and see the wire moved again. So again, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold this and I'm just going to tease it like this. Yeah, it's already back. So that technique works really well for that. Now I want you to take your head pin. Well, let's see. Yes, you're going to take your head pin and you're going to put your beads on it. So you're going to take your 8mm bead first. And then 5 4mm beads. Now I was playing around with beads for a while till I found what I wanted, what I was happy with. And the end of this is a little bit bent, so I'm just snipping it off. I think that was because this was a scrap. I used a scrap. 5 of those. I experimented with lengths, experimented with bead sizes. I did all kinds of things. This is probably the 10th time I've made this earring. Just because my prototypes kept changing. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and put it through that loop. And it's sitting funny. It's not sitting straight. So, and the coil moved again, but you know what? It doesn't matter at this point. It's so close, it doesn't matter. You can tease it back. Maybe I will tease it back again. There we go, teased back. That's so easy to do. Okay, got it. So you need to hold your wire straight. This wire straight this way, and see how the spring hangs on it. And if it's straight, that's good. So it's got to be level this way. So it sits on top of the bead and makes it hang straight. But that's what you're going for. And now, we're going to count 5. We got the front. See how this is at the back? And now I've got this at the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we want to end this spring at the back as well, so that the closures are at the same point basically, and they look like a full complete coil at the front. So I'm actually going to take this off and look at it this way. We want it to be at the back. So basically exactly where my coil has ended. So I did it perfectly. I'm going to snip this off, crimp it down, and then put a loop there without bending it in. We don't want this one bent in like this one. Okay, so I am now, yes, snips. Snip this off as close as you can. Crimp it in. Gently though, just gently, because I don't want to deform the wire. And it still has, there we go. And now I'm going to take my round nose pliers, put it right up to that coil, and I'm going to put a small loop. So we want to take the smallest point on your round nose pliers, and hopefully your pliers have a small tip, and do another P loop basically. Okay, and I'm going to snip that off there with the flush cutters. And then it's still open. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and at an angle like this so I don't wreck the coiling, I'm going to close it up. There we go. So I'm at it at an angle. I'm trying not to touch the coils and close it up like that. So it made a nice tiny little loop. There. Okay. So now I've got it back on with the beads. And see, now it's time to do the adjusting of the length. So I'm going to stretch this out. And I see I bent that coil a little bit. I'm going to try and bend that back so it looks where it's supposed to be. Try not to bend it like I did. And I'm just holding it and stretching. And we want to get it long enough that it's almost touching the bottom bead, but not, because we don't want the bottom bead to be pushing the coil sideways, because that's what it will do. Stretch it out. And if you get it too long, I think I've got it just about right. Right there. If you get it too long, you can always just push it back. So the thing is we want it to look nice as we go around. And so just, okay, and then we have to also make sure it's sitting right. And you will know what I mean when you look at yours. It's so hard for me to show this. So I need to stretch mine out just a smidge more. And you will do the same thing with both of them. You don't have to compare the two, although you can, because I have my other one done here. Whoops. And I can compare. See, the one I did tonight is nicer looking than the one I did the other day. And are they the same length? It's really hard to compare. So even right side by side, it is hard to do that comparison. I think I'm pretty bang on. But on somebody's ears, or even looking side by side, it's hard to tell. What's the most important thing is the beads. You're going to have consistent beads on both of your earrings, and you're going to have it so that you don't want it touching that bottom bead. You want it just floating above it so that it doesn't wreck the look. And you want that top loop to be very level so that and centered so that it sits right. And I believe I have them done. Okay, so I'm going to load up my second thing with beads before. Actually, I won't. I'll just move on because it's basically the same thing. Okay, so the next thing is we're just going to do a eye loop on top of this, and we're going to give it a little bit of space like this because we want it to have freedom of movement. And I'm just gonna, you want it, how do we want this sitting? We want it like this on the ear wire if at all possible. It's gonna move around on us, so it doesn't really matter. I guess what matters is how you want these coils to look. Do you want them to look that way or that way? I tend to go this way, but that's up to you. So going that way, to go on the ear wire, you actually want it like this and hold your pliers this way because you want the loop going the same direction as the coil. that makes sense. So I'm doing a band, and now I'm taking my round nose pliers and making that eye loop to my favorite size. And I'm just wrapping it around. It's hard to do that in camera. Okay, so that'll give an approximate size there. You want to be consistent with both of them, of course. Snip that. And now I'm going to close that up a little bit more with my round nose pliers. That way it's a nice loop. And I'm going to flatten it this way because you see it's sitting at an angle. We're going to flatten that because that'll affect how the earring hangs as well. Okay, now that is ready to put on an ear wire. Grab my ear wire. I'm fighting with my beads. Oh, I should have just opened up the ear wire one. I'm silly. Because I want that to be perfect. So that spring will move on you. So there's no way of holding it into place. And then all you have to do is when you dangle the ear wire is make sure everything is just sitting tickety-boo. And it is. Okay? And that's what it looks like. And that'll move around. And that's how I would like it to sit all the time, but it won't. And I have made my coils going the same direction. Again, back if you wanted yours to go the opposite way, you'd have to really think about doing it. Excuse me, because we tend to wrap things in the same direction all the time. We tend to be consistent because of what our hands automatically do for even putting a screwdriver in, right? You're always going the same direction. And you'll find when you make coils, you'll do that as well. Okay, so that's all there's to it. I could quickly make the other earring and have it done, but you can see that at the beginning of the tutorial as well. So I'm just going to end it here, save you some time. Thank you for joining me. Please check out my memberships and join if you would like to continue supporting my channel to thrive. And I really recommend the retired videos, because then anything that's over 2 years old that I have put into the retired, you'll have access to those videos. And yeah, thank you. God bless, and we will see you in the next one.